Welcome to Caserta's Data Intelligence Series. In this series, we talk about what it takes to go from a good data and analytics leader to a great one. We'll share with you the tools and methodologies you need to build better, faster, and more robust, as well as strategies and frameworks to generate more revenue and grow your business. Featuring some very special guests and experts to inspire you and give you advice and direction on your data journey. And now, introducing your host, Caserta Data and Analytics Evangelist and VP Marketing, Remy Rosenbaum.
Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode in the Caserta Data Intelligence webinar series. And today we have a very special topic of advancing personalized medicine and making that a reality. A lot of healthcare research facilities and institutions have this mandate of more personalized, more precise medicine, but doing so is no easy feat. At Caserta, we've helped lots of clients approach that, and a lot of times it's the underlying data problems and not necessarily what they're doing with the data. So how do we get this data in order? I have brought today an excellent presenter. He is our principal consultant, Bill Walrond. Bill has actually worked directly on engagements with our clients in healthcare, and he's going to talk about that and how we really help them achieve their goal of improving patient outcomes and improving patient lives. So Bill, take it away.
Thanks, Remy. Thanks, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Bill Walrond. I'm a principal consultant with Caserta, and I'm very excited to be giving this webinar today. Today we are, as Remy mentioned, we're having a discussion and case study also on using data to improve cancer patient outcomes. As a principal consultant with Caserta, we've done lots of projects, but I can tell you from personal experience, this project, this topic, and this experience was personally fulfilling and just an absolutely fascinating area of work for me personally and us Caserta as an organization leader in data and data implementations. And I'm very excited to talk with this group here today. So by the time we're through here, I hope you feel the same. So let's get started. So first, a few words about the role of data in medicine today. Let's take a bit of a reflection of what we're using data for in medicine today. Well, as a society, we're actually doing a bit better job of capturing most of our healthcare activity in our lives, meaning when you go to your doctor, your primary care physician, your specialist, the pharmacies, laboratories, wherever it is, these encounters are generally being recorded digitally, and that's happening more often than not, and certainly more often now than 10 or even 20 years ago. So today's healthcare delivery ecosystem has been largely digitalized. And so providers, payers, and life science companies all converging and creating value for the patients and all generating and consuming data in this digital delivery paradigm. I'll go one further and say that we're also doing a fairly decent job of retaining and associating the people with the data that is being captured. So, by and large, when you call your insurance company or your doctor and you tell them who you are, they can usually call up your data and call up your data quickly and associate you with your past history and do that very quickly. So we're doing better in this area. But what does this mean? Well, it means that the healthcare data ecosystem is exploding with data, that is. There is an enormous amount of data being generated on a daily, minute-by-minute basis. Estimates say 150 exabytes of healthcare data are being generated across all disparate care settings. That's just an enormous amount of data. It's coming from all kinds of places: genomic, molecular data mapping, 3 gigabytes a particular case, specific monitoring equipment generating thousands of readings per second, X-ray imaging data, millions of remote monitoring devices. Just the volume of data being generated in the healthcare data ecosystem is mind-boggling, and it's coming from all kinds of areas. You can see here, this is just a sampling of all of the areas where data is being generated from. We've got just left to right here, just your fundamental healthcare topical areas, community resources, consumer social determinants of health, from your healthcare providers, clinical data, the clinical data from, say, a hospital or a medical clinic, your patient care, EMR data, operational administrative data, scientific, the healthcare payers as well, insurance companies, life sciences. All the data is being generated from every corner of the healthcare ecosystem. Okay, so we get it. It's a lot of data. So what do we do now? Well, with all this data, it's really begging the question: are we making the most of this healthcare data? And as I mentioned before, fundamentally, okay, we're doing the fundamentals. We're capturing the data, and we can associate it back to the people and the subjects that are generating the data, and that's well and good. But couldn't we do more? And what are those opportunities to do more? Let's have a look at some of these opportunities for using data in healthcare. We're going to take a look at two. There are actually quite a few areas where we can leverage data in healthcare. We're going to take a closer look at two of them right now, because we could use the whole time just talking about opportunities. We're going to take a look at precision medicine, and we're going to take a look at predictive analytics for preventative care. Okay, so let's dive into precision medicine a little bit. Okay, so traditionally, medical professionals tend to look at symptoms and analyze symptoms and as many factors about their patients as they can. And then they match up the treatments that they're trained about and that they know about to the therapies they're trained to associate with those symptoms. But the trouble is that not everyone exhibiting the same symptoms responds to the same treatment in the same way. And that's part of the mystery of healthcare, after all, anyway. So, this loosely might be termed a one-size-fits-all approach. Well, with all of the data that we have now, that we're capturing now, we can see a way to create more defined groups of patients in more nuanced ways that help describe the patient and how the symptoms they're seeing relate to other ways of grouping these patients. So, for example, disease subtypes, risk profiles, we see it here. Other factors like demographics or even socioeconomic factors. So by taking a more detailed look at the grouping of subjects, we might then further decide that subjects within a particular group might tend to respond differently to different kinds of treatment. Now, with the data that we have, we can even take this approach even further to something called precision medicine. So what this means to say is we can get even more precise about analyzing our patients. So in other words, here we take genetic samples, we sequence at a genetic level our patients, and then based on that, the DNA sequencing, we can match up the characteristics at a DNA level with known characteristics of how treatment responds to other DNA samples with those same characteristics, and then fine-tune the therapies that are going to work for patients with those very specific characteristics. We can even include other groupings of characteristics like lifestyle, other health history, anything else that appears in our medical records, other exogenous factors. So here it is in the middle, right here. Precision medicine ensures delivery of the right intervention to the right patient at the right time. And with all of the data that we have, that's the promise of precision medicine. So this is one fantastic opportunity that we can pursue to leverage the massive amounts of data that we have in reaching the goal of precision medicine. So what else? So we mentioned before, other opportunities. One other fantastic opportunity is in predictive analytics for preventative care and cost reduction. Now, with the proliferation of predictive analytics capabilities in the data industry, predictive analytics are being used in a great number of ways, and this is another fantastic example. In other words, take for example, how can we prevent complications arising from spinal surgeries from occurring? Well, using our predictive analytics and using a core history of patients and therapy and outcomes, we can use our predictive analytic, create predictive models, and we can see with using the variables that are present in the data, we have the opportunity to identify patients who might be prone to complications arising from a particular spinal surgery, and knowing that probability, then take important steps to anticipate and intercept and be ready to treat them specifically for those complications, either before, during, or after surgery. Now, of course, as we know with predictive analytics and machine learning, the predictions are never certain, or predictions are never made in certainty, but instead predictions are made with odds or probability of an occurrence of a spinal surgery event, in this case. So medical professionals can use this information as they need to make the right decisions on a patient-by-patient basis, based on the data available to the medical professionals in these cases. So these are two fantastic opportunities to make great, excellent use of the data being captured in healthcare today. But the trouble is, it's just not as easy as that. So it turns out that there are a number of challenges to making all this happening and realizing these goals. There are quite a few challenges, in fact. I think the number one challenge here is sort of a challenge about how we regard healthcare data in the first place, especially in comparison to other data that we know and work with out there. So, in comparison with website data or consumer retail data, sales data, or streaming data, other data available to operate in other areas of business. It's sort of a fundamental difference in the nature of the impact of healthcare data than other data. So, as stated here, if for example, if you make a mistake with mapping directions and driving directions, it may add 15 minutes to your commute, and that's annoying. But if you make a mistake with healthcare data, it can really have a profound impact on someone's life. And that's just the way it is. And so that adds a very different element to how data professionals organize, treat, and handle healthcare data. Let's look at some more factors. So there's several other challenges to data-driven healthcare. Well, as mentioned before, enormous volumes of data, and just with any scenario where there's an enormous volume of data, you run into important technology challenges. Now, of course, the cloud technologies give us some powerful tools and technologies to handle enormous volumes in ways that we never had before, but that it's still not a let me just say, it's still not a slam dunk. You have to plan accordingly. You have to know these technologies and utilize these technologies in a specific way to handle enormous volumes of data in a sustainable way over time. Okay, there's multiple sources of and formats of data. As we mentioned before, data is coming from all over the place. And as such, these data has different shapes and forms. They have their own different standards depending on where you're coming from. All of those standards have to be treated differently and treated individually sometimes. And that adds an enormous dimension of complexity to handling different variations of healthcare data properly. And of course, we've got poor data quality. Now, we're capturing data better, but these systems that are capturing data, they're very good, but they're not perfect. And those imperfections come out in are realized frequently in terms of inconsistencies in data quality. And if you're a researcher or a healthcare professional trying to utilize data to further a particular research goal, you're going to run into these data quality issues, and you're going to have to account for them. And those are complexities that may not even relate to your particular research goal, but nonetheless, you have to spend energy dealing with that poor data quality. The other area is that medical data is just complex. There's no two ways about it. This is a very specific area with its medical terminology. That's why we have trained medical personnel that train for a long time to understand what this data means, understand the terms, the terminology, the process, and the relationships between the data. It's just complex data. It's just a complex topic, and the data reflects that. Then, of course, we've got privacy and security regulations. So HIPAA regulations for the proper handling and security of protected health information, PHI information. This is an element to all handling now of data in every step of the data ecosystem and every step of every data pipeline process that deals with healthcare data. So that's an added complexity. And then we have varied data consumption patterns where we've got such a variety of constituents in the community. We have doctors, nurses, researchers, admin personnel, patients, people themselves, all needing access to this data, but needing access in their own special way. So once you manage to overcome those challenges, then you have the privilege of dealing with a whole nother set of challenges. So for example, if you are going after personalized medicine, if you have goals, specific goals in personalized medicine, you have other unique challenges. You have, first, you need large patient populations with both positive and negative samples to identify those subsets that actually respond to targeted therapy. Those positive and negative cases need to exist in your sample sets. You need access to tissue that's available and suitable for molecular profiling, and you need the ability to follow up with patients to understand how their treatment is actually impacting them, and possibly enroll those patients in other clinical trials. Okay, so there's a lot of data, there's a lot of opportunities, but there are a lot of challenges to achieving those opportunities. So the good news is that there are ways through this. There are ways to achieve your goals in personalized medicine and get the outcomes that you're looking for. And what I want to go through now is one of our experiences at Caserta that we helped one cancer research center go through in exactly that, and for precisely that goal. And what I want to go through now is a personalized medicine Caserta case study, and we'll talk about how we dealt with the volumes and the opportunities and the challenges in this Caserta case study. Okay, just a little bit about this particular organization. We're talking with a leading cancer research center. This particular center opened up in 1996. They got their NCI designation in 2001. They happen to be operating a 200 plus bed full service hospital alongside their core mission of cancer research. And this cancer research center was very busy and very productive. They're publishing over 800 publications every year, and conducting over 300 open treatment trials across over 1,000 therapeutic accruals. So a serious cancer research center doing serious cancer research and making an impact in cancer therapy. Okay, so what was their goal in our particular situation? We're trying the way, and when we started talking with them, they made clear their goal was to advance personalized medicine. And as mentioned before, what this really means is that in reality, cancers found in the same part of the body between different patients can have very different responses to the same therapy. And furthermore, researchers have found that these varied responses may be linked to differences found in the DNA of those tumors. And furthermore, that a molecular level analysis of individual tumors can lead to individualized treatment plans on a patient by patient basis, and thus increase the chances to beat that cancer. But we quickly learned that this goal relies on quality, relevant, and timely data put into the hands of the people best qualified to use it. Okay, so, and as we spoke with leaders and stakeholders in this research center, we quickly learned how challenging the environment is. And we talked earlier about challenges. In this particular case study, we saw every one of those challenges. It was called the perfect storm of challenges. We had issues with data, technology, organization, and regulatory all across the board. Just starting from the variety of different data, it was impressive. So, we're talking about live patient care systems. These are the actual systems running the hospital, capturing patient demographics data, recording clinical characteristics, their treatment history, all of their encounter history, all of the data resulting from just running the hospital. Add to that national cancer data registries and data sets from these registries that are critical to match up with and study the characteristics of other samples in addition to the data coming from patients from the hospital. We had lab data, vital statistics data, even billing data and patient survey data came into play. This is all in addition to the enormous data volumes generated from our genomic sequencing equipment. This is the equipment that the research center had available, generating molecular genetic sequencing data based on real DNA samples. Now, we talked about that group of challenges, which were present here at this organization. But in addition to that group, this particular research center had other challenges like aging on-premise infrastructure. They operated their own data center, and like many organizations that operate their own data center experienced a lot of those same challenges related to scalability, expandability, and managing the cost of doing those things in an on-premise infrastructure. Because as an additional challenge, this research center had no prior cloud technology presence and no internal on-staff experience with cloud technology. Add to that the stringent PHI privacy policies for patient data that had to be observed, and those specific practices put in place for every step of the data supply chain. And if that's not enough, as I mentioned before, this healthcare data is complex. We've got this research facility, we're dealing with medical topics and terminology that, as we learned, require qualified personnel to interpret. This data is nuanced, and you need to be qualified to really understand and interpret it properly. Additionally, with electronic medical records data, this is the collection of data that is captured by the systems really running the hospital. This data, the conceptual data model within it is vast. There are many entities from patient, encounter, treatment, drug, vital statistics, labs. All of those topic areas result in their own mini data models, if you will, or entities, or conceptual entity models. And that many of these entities have many-to-many relationships, which further complexifies the environment. There are rules. There are lots of rules. There are exceptions to the rules, and then there are exceptions to the exceptions of the rules. And as I mentioned before, their data quality inconsistencies are common. the medical professionals working in the hospitals and recording the data. They're doing their jobs and recording the data the way that they need to, but that still doesn't stop inconsistencies coming out in the data. And by the time someone, a researcher, needs to use that data for their research goals, they have to account for that and maybe make special transformations or make account for that in other ways that otherwise they wouldn't have to. Okay, so what did this really result in? Well, we heard that it resulted in a kind of let's call it a data starvation condition, where these brilliant cancer researchers who want nothing more than to do their best to develop new therapies for treating cancer are suffering from data starvation. This is despite having such an abundance of data and sources of data. You see, in this case, researchers were blocked by a frustrating data request process and the technology that supported that data request process. Meaning, researchers would submit a data request, but their request would go into a queue, and only to receive their data that they asked for months later. And even at that, they might not even exactly get what they asked for, and then have to go through an iteration exercise to fine tune exactly what the data that they need. Okay, so what did we do? So Caserta's approach here was we recommended we conduct an initial capability assessment. So what this meant is, first we come on site, we meet with the leaders and stakeholders, and we listen. And we listen to what their goals are and their opportunities and what they want to do. And we start brainstorming. We start brainstorming what solutions could look like. And we discuss more about and learn more about what their challenges are and what they've been doing about it. And as we do that, we're at the same time bringing our experience, bringing our 20 years of real world data architecture experience to overlay on top of the research center goals, all the while trying to discuss a variety of different possibilities suitable for the research center's goals. So we talked about different cloud vendors and what it means to choose one cloud vendor over the other. We talked about relevant data technology vendors, the pros and cons and characteristics that made them different. We talked about components of a modern data ecosystem built for their needs, and a modern data ecosystem in the cloud, but could also reach in and leverage on-premise resources as well. Furthermore, we talked about and explored the role of data governance. And data governance in this context has a special place, a special value, because with the vastness of data that this research center is having to deal with, a clear data governance strategy was really needed to enable a sustainable value for the organization to get a sustainable value out of this envisioned data ecosystem for the years to come. Okay, so what next? So we proposed a vision. So having heard all of their goals and their challenges, we proposed a vision. So in our case, we proposed a unique data ecosystem that first started with a consolidated enterprise data lake repository. At its center was represented by a centralized core data model accommodating all of the data sources that I mentioned before and all of the data entities and topic areas that I mentioned before that their researchers really needed to cover all of their research needs. We recommended an all cloud-based architecture because for all of the great reasons cloud-based architectures are good for, mainly scalable and elastic capabilities for both compute and storage capacity. That and a cloud-based HIPAA compliant vendor, it was a fundamental requirement. But in addition to a consolidated data lake, what became clear to us as we talked with the research center researchers is that more than that, the researchers were looking for an ability to easily peel off specialized curated data sets for their specific research goals. And this was a unique capability specific to their life and their achieving their process in achieving their goals. So what we came up with was this notion of an ephemeral data science workspaces concept. And the idea here was let's create a concept where we create unique workspaces comprised of a combination of compute, storage, and data resources that are carved out and allocated on a researcher by researcher basis. And instead of offering generic resources for researchers to query and work with the vast data directly in the enterprise data lake, instead they would be offered a data science workspace that would contain all of the compute and storage capacity that they needed, in addition to specialized curated data sets derived from the centralized enterprise data lake repository. And in this way, this would achieve exactly what every researcher was telling us they needed, which was, I just want to be able to research and do work on my data. I want to analyze my data with the resources I need to do it, with enough resources that I need to do it. And that's what this notion of a data science workspace concept was aiming to achieve. And it's exactly what it did. In addition to those capabilities, we carved out some traditional business intelligence tools because there are other users who just needed to query the data in a more traditional way, and that served a good number of user groups. We also recommended a strategy for data governance, which, as I mentioned, includes an enterprise data catalog and a specific data lineage capability. So these two components of data governance were going to be absolutely necessary. This vast enterprise data lake, it needs a map. You need a way to understand what's inside this data lake repository, and that's what the enterprise data catalog was going to answer. That's the enterprise data catalog needs to be up to date and descriptive enough of what is that enterprise data lake contains. But also, because the enterprise data lake contains data and is merging data from different sources, it's critical to have accurate data lineage, so all consumers of the data really understand where that data is coming from, and they can be clear about where that data is coming from when they start analyzing it and start asking questions. Okay, so having proposed this vision, we were confident that we would be moving the research center from a space of completing their data research requests in a matter of months down to a matter of days, and that was really the part of the core goal here for this data ecosystem. Okay, so what next? So just a quick look-see at what the initial look at what our architecture looked like here. Some of these components here might look familiar to other data architectures, but as I mentioned before, one of the unique aspects here with the ephemeral data science workspaces, which we see off here in the right, these workspaces again would have those capabilities that just the researchers would need, and they would be spun up and available when needed. And when research activity was done, they could be released and data archived. Okay, so what next? All right, so how do we make it happen? So the first thing was since the organization was still new to the cloud, it was important that we formulate a cloud transformation strategy. And that began with a detailed cloud readiness assessment of the technology organization. We helped them with that assessment, and we developed a cloud-based target data architecture, which I showed just a minute ago. And then furthermore, we developed a detailed phased implementation roadmap, which we then stayed on to actually implement. So we partnered with the technology team on an implementation, and that began with first an understanding of their actual data. So it's clear, you know, in every implementation, you need your hands on the actual data to really do any good. We helped the research center onboard themselves with their cloud vendor, so we got their network presence in the cloud, get them connected with their on-premise infrastructure. We worked with their data architecture group to develop conceptual enterprise models for all of those entities and data areas that I mentioned before, and developed logical data models for each of those entity areas. And we designed and implemented a data pipeline architecture that support and all of its related supporting components. And we developed and tested several data pipeline patterns, namely for data ingestion, data quality, data transformation, process orchestration, and dependency management. And so where did that leave us? By the time we were done, the Cancer Research Center, we had completed our first phase of the new data ecosystem. Caserta, we mentored their in-house technology staff who were also all brand new to the cloud technology. They were brand new to all of the components of a modern data ecosystem. We mentored them in learning all of those new components, and we enabled the research center staff to begin operating independently on their own to complete the rest of the vision of offering advanced precision medicine. And again, that was a absolutely fantastic experience. You know, I consider that to be you know, a notable moment in Caserta's work in data over time. And the outcomes showed it. Okay, so in conclusion, let's just review a couple points here. So the role of data in personalized medicine. So there's an abundance of data. There's lots of it, and it's only getting bigger. There are many opportunities, but with each opportunity, in healthcare data, there are many challenges. And to overcome those challenges and be successful with your goals, seek help from an experienced partner like Caserta. And with that, I would extend an invitation to all those participating that reach out to talk about your particular goals, your challenges, and what you have in mind to try and achieve. And so that's it. Remy, unless there are some questions, we can. I think that's it for today.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill. That was very insightful. And if you are stuck on your data project at your healthcare institution or other company, please talk to us. We'd love to be your guide on your data journey. And if it's relevant, then we'll definitely help. And if not, then we're going to also point you in the right direction. So reach out. Thank you, everyone, and take care.